Hey, how's it going? Bill Lethman here for Money Evolution. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what to do with your 401k plan when you retire or change jobs. So here recently, I was watching some YouTube video, going through some different finance related topics, and I came across this Dave Ramsey video. And in the video, he had a caller call in, and she was telling him that she had recently just quit her job after working for a company for 30 years. And she had a 401k plan, and she said, I don't know what to do, and I know I have to take it out. So she was asking Dave for his advice, and Dave pretty quickly kind of came into a recommendation that he had, and I thought he was a little bit too quick to respond to that. While that might have been a good recommendation, I think there were several questions that he should have asked her and understood her situation a little bit more before he jumped right in with a possible solution there. And I think that's sometimes the problem that you see on some of these different videos, especially if you have call-in shows and that. It's really difficult to get the whole context of everything. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk about the recommendation that Dave Ramsey actually had for her. I'm going to talk about the different options that you have. And there's actually 4 very specific options that you have if you have an old 401k plan, whether it's one that's a really old 401k plan that you haven't worked for in a while, or it's something that you're just now separating service and you have a 401k plan and you're not sure exactly what to do with it. So I'm going to talk about those 4 basic options. And I'm also going to talk about a couple of the questions that Dave should have asked her that could have possibly led to a better recommendation here. So let's jump right in here. So she said that she had quit after working for 30 years. She said that she had $85,000 in her 401k plan. About the only other contextual information that she gave him was that she wasn't really ready to retire. So one of the biggest questions that I would have asked her is, how old is she? Because that really has a lot to do with some of the other options that you potentially could have. But the other thing that she said here too is, I know that I have to take it out. So when it comes to an old 401k plan, the number one thing is that you probably don't have to take it out. In fact, I can't even really think of an example in my 30 years of working in this industry where somebody left a company, had an old 401k plan, and had to move it out. The only situation that could possibly arise for that is if it's a very low balance, and I'm talking like less than $5,000, maybe even less than a couple $1,000s. Most of the time, again, I don't even think I can think of an example where somebody isn't allowed to keep their 401k plan. So when it comes to those 4 401k rollover options or 401k options, if you retire or separate service, the first option is really just to do nothing, or simply leave it in the plan. And if you like your 401k plan, you like the options, or maybe you're just kind of checking things out, do not feel rushed. You do not have to move that 401k plan. You can just simply leave it where it's at. The second option that you may have is you could roll it over to a new 401k plan. And so one of the things that I could write there, roll over to a new 401k plan. So one of the things she mentioned is she said she's really not ready to retire, and throughout the conversation she did allude to the fact that she was going to try to get another job. So Dave Ramsey's advice was to do a direct rollover transfer from her 401k plan to an IRA account. So that would be option number 3, so roll over to an IRA. And I'm going to talk about why that may not necessarily be the best option, and why you really just don't want to jump into that solution there. So kind of skipped around there a little bit. So you can roll over to a new 401k plan. So if you're going back to work and you don't want to hassle with having to have an IRA account and also a 401k with a new company, you could just simply roll it over to the new 401k plan. Before you do that, of course, you want to make sure you check it all out, make sure you like the investment options, the fees on it, make sure that the fees are not too excessive and everything on the 401k plan, but you can roll it over to a new 401k. You can roll it over to an IRA account, and there may be some good reasons to do that. You could work with a financial advisor. You could get investment options that you don't have inside of a 401k plan. You kind of have a little bit more open architecture there depending on where you have it. You can control the fees a little bit. You can go with a discount advisor, discount place like a Fidelity or Schwab or something like that, or you could work with a financial advisor. Depending on what you invest in, some things can be very, very inexpensive. Some mutual funds might be more expensive. You want to check that all out. So just to say that it's going to be cheaper or more expensive expensive, wouldn't necessarily be consistent there. And then the fourth option is you could just cash it out. Now that's probably not the best option for most people. If you cash out your 401k plan, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. You no longer have that tax advantaged account. And if you're under 59 and a half, you could have a 10% penalty in there as well. So the questions that I would have asked, and it did come up later in the conversation with this individual and Dave Ramsey, but we learned a little bit later after he had already made the recommendation to roll it over to an IRA account, we learned that she was 58 years old. Now, what's significant about that? Well, 58 years old is in between two key age milestones as it relates to 401k plans. One is the age 55, and age 55, if you separate service in or after the year you reach the age of 55, you can actually take penalty-free withdrawals from your 401k plan without that 10% penalty. You still have to pay income taxes on it, especially if we're talking about a traditional 401k plan, but you don't have to pay that 10% penalty. So because she quit her job and she hasn't found a new job yet, hopefully this wouldn't be the case, but if she rolled that money over to an IRA account, she's then going to be bound by that age 59 rule. Whereas if she left it in the 401k plan, and if she did run into a pinch and she needed to get some money out, again, that wouldn't be the recommendation, but if she needed to get some money, she could take it from that 401k plan because, as the caller said, she was 58 years old, so she was clearly over the age of 55, but she was not 59 and a half, so she wouldn't be able to qualify for that 10% penalty savings if she rolled it over to an IRA account. So that's very important. That's one very significant reason why you may want to leave your money with a 401k plan. I know a lot of advisors will just jump right into this rollover to an IRA. Dave was very quickly talking about some of his advisors that he has in his network, and sit down with one of them, let them help you find some mutual funds and things like that. So obviously there was a little bit of incentive there with that. So a couple of other things that I would have asked or looked into and just really learned a little bit more about her situation and what she has in that 401k plan. One of those is, does she have any company stock inside the 401k plan? And if she did, she could qualify for a special tax privilege known as net unrealized appreciation, or NUA. And I'm not going to get into all the details here. It gets a little bit complicated, but if you have company stock inside your 401k plan, especially if that stock is highly appreciated, you may qualify for this NUA, which allows you to essentially take that company stock out of your 401k plan. You pay tax at the time of the distribution just on the cost basis. So you could have $100,000 of stock with a $10,000 cost basis. You could take that $100,000 out, and you're only paying the ordinary income taxes on that $10,000. Then the $90,000 of growth in there, that deferred gain, if you will, that gets classified as net unrealized appreciation, and then you'll later, when you sell the stock outside of your 401k, pay taxes at the tax preference rate for long-term capital gains, which for most people, it's probably going to be 15%. It could be 20% if you're in a really high tax bracket, but most people probably 15%. So NUA would be an option if you had company stocks. I would ask, hey, before you roll this over, do you have any company stock? Is it highly appreciated? Maybe there's another option there for that. Some people have an after-tax savings. I've talked about this in many other videos there. It's a way that people can exceed the normal contribution limits on 401k savings, go all the way up if you're over 50 and get that catch-up contribution up to $76,500 in total 401k employer-sponsored plan contributions through the combination of your regular 401k, any match that you might be getting, and then this after-tax account if you have it available. Not all 401k plans have it, but if you have money in an after-tax bucket, before you just roll it over or do something, you could actually, with a tax notice that the IRS put out in 2014, you can roll that money over tax-free into a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k plan if you have that option available. Before you roll over a 401k plan, you want to understand what those different options are. And again, going back to it, 4 basic options. Leave the plan where it's at. You don't have to feel compelled. You don't have to feel rushed to do something. You can roll it over to a new 401k if you're going back to work, and there may be some good reasons for doing that. One very good reason for doing that, or leaving it in your plan, is to do a backdoor Roth strategy. And so a backdoor Roth IRA. So you may know that some people make too much money to contribute directly to a Roth IRA, but you can do a workaround essentially where you contribute money to an after-tax IRA or a non-deductible IRA contribution. Anybody can do that regardless of how much money you make, and then you can immediately convert that over to a Roth IRA account. It's all completely tax-free. It's a very good option for people to save additional money, get that into the Roth IRA account. But if you have any existing IRA accounts, this basically won't work. It could work, but it gets really complicated. I'm not going to get into all the details here, but something called the pro rata rules really make that difficult. Ends up not really accomplishing what you want to do. So if you don't have any existing IRA accounts, but you roll over a 401k plan into an IRA account, now you no longer have that backdoor Roth contribution strategy available to you. So that's a reason for either leaving it in your existing 401k or rolling it to a new one, because a 401k is not an IRA, and that could allow you to do that backdoor Roth strategy. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. You know, what to do with an old 401k plan, or if you separate service, retire, leave your job, what to do with that. If you want to learn more about what we do at Money Evolution, be sure to go to moneyevolution.com. We're building out a whole reference library of all kinds of different topics pertaining to retirement planning, personal finance. You can learn more about our comprehensive financial plan called the Money Evolution Plan, and also our self-guided DIY retirement program called the Retirement Time Machine. So check that out, and I'll look forward to seeing you back in one of our next videos. Thanks.